Hello everyone, this is part 7 of What If Naruto Was a Demigod in the Justice League, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Is Naruto still in meditation? The hologram of a white and gold armored woman asked. It was Wonder Woman. MHM, still there, answered the deep voice of a male. It came from an elephant-sized nine-tailed fox. Currently, that giant fox's large tails were stirring up gales of wind as they wagged in the air. The reason for his happiness was the still warm carcass of an enormous beast lying at his feet. His powerful jaws were crushing through its bones and ripping entire chunks of meat from it effortlessly. Is that a dinosaur? Wonder Woman asked, startled. QB licked a large amount of blood staining his whiskers before answering. No clue what a dinosaur is. But it's so tasty and it's huge. After that, he went back to devouring his prey. Though the beast's body was 4 times larger than his, QB needed less than 2 minutes for the rest of the dinosaur-like creature to disappear into his stomach. With his hunger satiated now, the fox became significantly more talkative. He might not look the part, but that idiot is a sage. Staying a few days or a week immersed in his connection with nature is nothing much to him. In that state, his body recovers more easily, gets purified, and it becomes more attuned to natural energy. A sound of surprise came from the hologram emitted by the drone flying next to QB. If it's so good for him, why didn't you go directly to that place and came to Earth instead? She asked curiously. Instead of QB, it was unexpectedly someone else that replied. Be it pure or be it polluted, natural energy in its raw form is poisonous to humans. I don't use only natural energy. I combine natural energy with my own chakra to create senjutsu, which is an amalgam of both. Back then, I was hurt too badly and in no condition to properly manipulate natural energy. If I had absorbed any more of it at that time, I would have died. Going to Earth seeking sanctuary was a much better option because I knew the bleeding heart of the Justice League would not turn us down if we came there while I was wounded like that. I didn't have fuel to come to this place even if I wanted anyway. This planet is extremely far away from the Vega system. It's several galaxies away. After he said that, the newcomer revealed a smile and said teasingly. How are you, Diana? Do you miss me already? At the sight of him, Wonder Woman involuntarily mirrored his smile, but she tried to say nonchalantly. I'm just checking up on you to see if you're okay. It's been a week, after all. A snort came from the huge fox behind Naruto. Yeah, it's been a week. As if you totally didn't call me 5 times until now, starting from the very first day. Wonder Woman's stoic face suddenly flushed. Kurama, you said you wouldn't tell. She half yelled in embarrassment. QB laughed out loud at her expense, very pleased with himself. Ha ha, I'll leave you 2 lovebirds by yourselves, he said and left. Meanwhile, Naruto gripped with a hand at his heart. Hearing QB saying that Diana tried to contact him 5 times already while he had been meditating filled him with warmth. The gap between how serious and stoic she was generally and how she acted when she was flustered was too much. Ah, my heart, this is no good, she's cute as hell. Any more than this and I'll go back to Earth this instant. Even after the source of her embarrassment left, Diana's normally pale cheeks were still marred by a rosy color. Naruto motioned the drone to come closer to him and then sat on the grassy ground with his back leaning against the trunk of a tree. I missed you too, he said sincerely. Despite that only 1 week passed since he left the Earth, he already missed her. Tell me, what have you been up to these days? Is everything alright over there? Gladly accepting the change in the subject of their conversation, Wonder Woman replied. It became rather hectic after the Justice Lord's incident. The government of the USA is now paranoid, thinking that someday the Justice League will also follow in their footsteps to assassinate the president and take over the planet. The United Nations didn't respond well to the Justice League becoming bigger either, saying that there's no reason for us to amass that much power. It's been one annoying meeting after another. No wonder Earth is still so backwater compared to other civilizations in the universe. You're all so divided. So many races, religions and countries fighting against each other for their own interests. How can you progress like that? Wonder Woman inwardly agreed with what he said and sighed. The Justice League needed to become stronger. Earth has had too many close calls. From what I heard, a few years ago Darkseid almost took over the Earth and beat up Superman very badly, almost killing him. It was only thanks to the ruler of New Genesis, the Highfather, that Earth was spared. Then, there was Imperium and its race too, about a year ago. They almost destroyed the planet. We defeated them by the skin of our teeth. But the funny thing is that the talk about Justice League becoming larger has not been brought up until after you came around. Why me? You gave us one more wake-up call. We were reminded once more that only 7 people are not enough to protect the Earth from invaders. That we need more strength, more manpower. Naruto scratched his cheek, rather embarrassed about what he was about to say. Don't mean to brag, but there aren't that many beings as powerful as I am. You can't really compare me to the average alien invaders out there. When your skin is thick enough to brag like that, why are you scratching your cheek? She said teasingly. Hey. The two of them laughed together. Still, things are coming together well. We've already gotten more than 30 new members over the past week. The 2 girls you've saved, Starfire and Supergirl, have joined the league too. Superman also roped in Aquaman too and convinced him to support it financially. We have another billionaire supporting us, Maxwell Lord, and there are 2 members among the Justice League that are very wealthy as well. So financial resources are not an issue and we get new members every day, metahumans from all over the world. We are international already. We got members not only from the USA but from Europe, India and Africa too. Naruto was not that familiar with the Earth's geography since, before he and Wonder Woman became lovers, he never cared about the Earth enough to study that. Nonetheless, he listened to Wonder Woman talk about what she had been up to with interest. Actually, we found something interesting. Japan has created a system different from other countries. They have agencies of heroes that manage and control the metahumans willing to serve. By the way, Japan is a country in the Asian continent, with over 100 million people. That sounds interesting. How does that work? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. The hero agencies are regulated by the law and they pay taxes to the government too. In exchange, they can hire and manage all metahumans that are willing to serve. They still wear costumes and masks to protect their identity from the villain's retaliation, but they no longer need to have a civilian job too. Their work is considered legal now, not just a vigilante's act. They can work full-time as heroes and get paid for it. The government even created a public high school for teaching metahuman kids how to be a professional hero. Everything is super organized. When I found out about their system, I also realized why we've never been to Japan to help out with arresting any rogue metahumans or to assist in case of natural disasters, because they're handling it perfectly by themselves. They don't need the Justice League over there. Like that, the 2 of them talked without noticing the passing of time. They realized how long they had been chatting for only when the sky started getting darker. I must have bored you talking about hero-related stuff for that long. Wonder Woman said apologetically. Naruto shook his head. Don't worry about it. It was kind of refreshing. I've never talked like this with a girl until I met you. You're my first girlfriend, have I told you that? That's surprising, to say the least. Wonder Woman said. Why so? I've never been the most popular guy around. You must be joking. You have this charm that draws people to you. Even Green Lantern, Superman, and the others, did you not notice? They were torn between liking you and wanting to chase you away due to how dangerous you are. Naruto chuckled at her words. He was not convinced. No way. Back in my homeworld, I was an outcast. It was only in the last few months during my stay there that things had started to come around for me, but that's only because I literally convinced someone to bring people back to life from the dead. Until then, since Kurama was sealed inside of me, I was just the demon brat in the eyes of the ordinary people, while for the government of my country, I was a human sacrifice, a weapon of war. On my home planet, people that had demons sealed inside them were used to maintain the balance of power between the strongest 5 nations on the continent. You could say that we were the equivalent of nuclear missiles on Earth. Whoever had the strongest Jinchuriki or a higher number of them held the advantage. That's horrible, Wonder Woman said, but he smiled. He did not seem that affected by his past anymore. It wasn't all that bad though. I had good times as well. And I think it's because I was a Jinchuriki that I got to meet great people too. My mentor, Jiraiya, an aunt-like figure named Tsunade, and also Gaara, a friend who was just like me. That reminds me, if Jiraiya-sensei could see you, even his ghost would die of blood loss, haha. He was a massive pervert. The biggest pervert I've ever met. Seeing you, especially when you were wearing your previous costume, would have been fatal. What's that supposed to mean? What's wrong with the way I used to dress? Naruto felt a sensation of danger, but he braved in with no hesitation. You want the straight answer or the sensible one? He asked, and then chuckled when she saw her narrowing her eyes. Your costume looked like something a hooker would wear. Naruto, she yelled. Asterism. Several hours passed and the two of them were still filled with as much energy as when they just started. By now, it was already midnight. 3 moons of various sizes were shining brightly above his head. It's beautiful, isn't it? Naruto asked and directed the camera at the sky. It was not only the 3 moons that were shining, but the night sky was also brightly lit up by countless clusters of stars, and even distant nebulas could be seen. With no artificial lights at all and with the planet's peculiar location in the universe, that night sky was something one could find on very few other planets. Violet, red, yellow, blue, and even green lights gave the night sky an otherworldly feeling. It is amazing, Wonder Woman said in genuine awe. I discovered this planet by accident while wandering through the boundless void outside the known universe. I have traveled for so many years and to so many places, but I have yet to see a place as beautiful as this. I named this planet Myoboku. 1. He sighed wistfully and said, I wish you were here with me now to see it in person. The two of them stood silent for a while, just watching the night sky together. Since they started their conversation several hours ago, it was the first time they were silent. Say, Naruto, will you come to spend the Christmas together with me? It's a winter holiday people celebrate on Earth. Originally, it was a religious celebration, but it lost its meaning with time. Now, it is mostly a holiday when people exchange gifts and spend time together with their family. Oh, we had something similar back in my homeworld. It was called the Rinyu Festival. But I've never celebrated it before. Naruto said. His voice was a bit melancholic. I haven't celebrated the Christmas on Earth either because I only came to the man's world last year and I didn't have anyone to celebrate it with back then. Wonder Woman said. Then, she smiled and added in a soft voice, but now I have you. He felt a rush of warmth in his heart at her words. I've never been a big fan of the holidays. To an orphan like me, it used to be the time of the year when I was the loneliest. But now I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad I met you, Diana. I am in love with you. A hint of pink appeared in her cheeks and she smiled shyly. Unwittingly, she rolled a strand of her long black hair around her finger. It gave her an excuse to look down and prevent him from seeing her flustered face. Kook. That gap mo will be the death of me someday. Naruto said and gripped with a hand at his chest again when he saw her reaction. She was as weak to his compliments as ever and he was as weak to her cuteness as always. They were both deadly to each other. Seriously, you haven't bothered to study the geography of Earth, but you learned all kinds of degenerated things from the internet. She rebuked him, but that half annoyed, half embarrassed expression on her face only served to make him grin wider. HNG, what's wrong with the internet? If there is anything great at Earth, it's the internet. I've never come across something as good as that on any other planet. I quite enjoyed it, especially the digital art with you in them. Look, I even downloaded some of them for my own use. Then, he grabbed another device and showed her an image of her at the beach. In that image, Wonder Woman was leaning on her elbows on the counter of a beach bar with her voluptuous breasts almost spilling out of the white bikini top she was wearing. Furthermore, her long black hair was wet, her white teeth were biting softly into her red lower lip and her eyes were looking ahead half narrowed, seductively. Obviously, it was a fake picture. The Amazon princess had never been to a beach after she left the island of paradise. But Diana exploded. What do you mean for your own use? Naruto, I swear to Great Athena, when I get my hands on you. Asterism. It was in the wee hours of the morning that Naruto and Diana finally ended their conversation. Though quite some time passed since then, he was still smiling, glowing with happiness. Is this what I've been missing on for almost 100 years? In his obsession with finding a way back to his homeworld, he had purposely avoided unnecessary contact and personal relationships with other people. He had not wanted to become distracted from his goal. Because of that, as years passed and he watched all the death and destruction happening on a large scale across the universe, his heart grew colder and more indifferent. He became jaded. However, in spite of that, in just a little over 1 month, that layer of stone isolating his heart from the world outside cracked. Not knowing when or how, a black-haired warrior princess had sneaked past his defenses and slipped into his heart. There were over a dozen job offers pending his answer from other information brokers that had jumped in at the chance to fill the void left by Rui Nak's death, but he was in no mood to work or do anything else. Now, all he could think of was Diana. He was still drunk with happiness from the time he spent talking with her when a loud beeping sound came from his lightwave communication device. Who could it be? He wondered absent-mindedly when he did not recognize the number calling him. Seeing as it was not Diana, he ignored it and went back to watching the sky while thinking about her. But several minutes passed and the beeping would not stop. Fine, goddammit, hope their house was burning or something, 'cause I'll be pissed if they bother me for no reason, he muttered to himself in annoyance. Making a clawing motion with his hand, his white fox Anbu mask materialized over his face. When he hit the accept button, it was a muscular man dressed in a red suit and wearing a winged silver helmet on his head that appeared. What the hell? Though they had never met in person until then, as a well-informed intergalactic mercenary, Naruto knew that man's identity. It was none other than Orion, one of the strongest and most valiant among the new gods of New Genesis. He was a rather famous character in the universe for his repeated clashes with the ruler of Apocalypse, Darkseid. Someone like that calling him on his personal lightwave device was not something that he had seen it coming. I am Orion of New Genesis, the god introduced himself. I know who you are. What does a god need from a mortal like me? Naruto asked. Though his words seemed polite, the tone he spoke them with was far from that. He had no reverence for anyone that called themselves gods. Not after witnessing the terror of the void, the power of the universe. In front of something like that, even gods were little more than insects. Whether Orion noticed his disrespectful tone or not would remain a mystery, because he answered to Naruto's question without pause, right away. I need you to kill my father. Whether Orion noticed his disrespectful tone or not would remain a mystery, because he answered to Naruto's question without pause, right away. I need you to kill my father. From daydreaming happily about the girl he was in love with to being told to assassinate someone's father, it was too much of a jump. I beg your pardon. Momentarily, he thought that he heard wrong. You want me to kill Highfather? I don't kill everyone, bub. Look here and read what it says. Taking out one of his business cards, he pointed with this index finger at the part where it said he took assassination bounties but for scumbags only. Orion shook his head. Highfather is not my biological father. My real father is Darkseid. Previously, Apocalypse and New Genesis had been locked in a war for tens of thousands of years. However, an uneasy truce was established when Darkseid and Highfather exchanged the newborn sons. Darkseid's son, me, was given to Highfather and vice versa. The terms of the non-aggression pact between the two societies of gods were not known to the general public. Naruto had not known about them until then either. The gods were generally shrouded in mystery and not much was known about them besides some of their feats. In the first place, the new gods lived in a different dimension altogether. Why ask me of all people? Better yet, why not do it yourself? Orion said bitterly. I've tried to kill Darkseid my entire life. But I couldn't. He is too powerful and always surrounded by his nigh unbeatable army and countless parademons. And now with the truce between Apocalypse and New Genesis, invading Apocalypse by myself could spark the start of a new great war. I'll never do something like that. I won't spit on Highfather's efforts to maintain the peace. But, although immortal, you have enough power to even destroy a planet, without the use of technology. That is a feat I could never replicate. You could destroy Apocalypse and Darkseid together. Naruto sighed. I'm afraid I'll have to refuse this bounty. Orion immediately became angry. Why? He shouted. Billions of innocent people were massacred by Darkseid and his army in his crusades. You have the power to end it all. Why aren't you doing anything? In contrast, Naruto was as calm as the water of a still lake. He could not just willy-nilly destroy a planet. He nearly paid with his life for amassing that much power before. His power was restricted by the environment. He grew stronger the more power he siphoned from the world. But it could also work against him like it did on the Saiyan's planet. There are limits to my power. There are certain conditions to be fulfilled in order for me to obtain that kind of strength. If those conditions are fulfilled, then yes, killing Darkseid, or you, or anyone really, would be like killing chickens. Otherwise, I can't defeat a god like Darkseid, to say nothing of his army and those mutated beasts you call parademons. If he were to fight anyone on Myoboku, on his untainted and pristine planet, he could stomp even on gods like they were bugs. On a planet like Apocalypse, however, a wasteland of fire and smoke, he would be nowhere near that level. But even if I was strong enough to do it, I would still not accept your bounty. Though Orion's head was covered by the winged silver helmet he was wearing, Naruto could discern that his face was contorted in anger. The new god had some very pronounced anger management issues. Supposedly you're a god. Don't you know how the universe works? Do you need me, a mortal, to spell it for you? Seeing Orion not replying, Naruto continued. Light and darkness, good and evil, life and death, creation and destruction. The universe cannot exist without a balance of both. No matter how much you fight against the evil, you could never eradicate it. I annihilated the Scion race almost 2 months ago. Do you think that my deed was all that great? Bitter laughter came from him. What do you mean by that? Orion asked, this time calmer than before. Naruto's obscure words had sobered him up. I liberated the Vega system from the Saiyan's tyranny. That is indeed a great deed if you look at it alone. But less than 2 months passed since the Scions were killed. Wait a few more months or years and you will see, a new power of darkness will rise to take their place. Obviously, it won't be in the same place. But mark my words, in the following months or years, a new intergalactic power will appear, an intergalactic power hell-bent on conquering and destruction. He raised his head and looked at the sky. The first signs of the morning started to appear at the horizon as pale orange rays of light shooed away the darkness of the night. It's almost poetic. I was like the daybreak when I brought light upon the Vega system. But while morning comes here, on the other side of the planet, evening falls. Just like that, while the Vega system was liberated, in another part of the universe, darkness will rise. This is the law of the universe. There is always a balance between light and darkness. Once the balance tips in favor of either of the two, it will be destroyed. Looking back at his device, he told Orion. Do you understand now? Even if you somehow managed to kill Darkseid, it would amount to nothing. Another one will rise to take his place. This is the truth of this world. This is the truth that I've come to know. No matter how powerful you are, no matter if you are a god or an all-powerful being, you could never extinguish evil. Then why did you annihilate the Scions if you knew another force would take their place? Why do all that if it's meaningless? Orion countered. But it wasn't meaningless for me. The Scions wanted to capture me and make me their toy. For the universe at large, the Saiyan's destruction is nothing, but for me it was crucial. I don't have to live my life looking over my shoulder in fear of their plots. The Scions were a powerful race, one of the most technologically advanced races in the universe. Having such a threat looming over my head at all times would undoubtedly spell my death eventually if I didn't do something about it. But Darkseid and I have no friction. He never acted against me, why should I take on such a dangerous job for no reason? As I said, even if Darkseid died, another god of evil will rise in his place. There must always be a god of evil, and don't tell me I should do it for the reward. What reward could be worth it for me to go fight against the god of evil and his intergalactic army, by myself? That's suicide. You want me to do what you, Highfather, and your army of gods could not do even after dozens of thousands of years. Do you hear yourself? Orion became silent for a few moments. When put that way, he realized how ridiculous it sounded for him to ask of one man and a demon fox to do what he and an army of gods could not do even after thousands and thousands of years. He let out a deep sigh. He understood why would that be seen as a suicidal mission. Though they could not close the deal, he did not end the call right away and, instead, he asked a question regarding the words that the blonde had told him before. If what you say about evil being indestructible is true, what is the point of fighting? What is the point of it all? With such a bleak look on life, how does one muster the will and strength to continue on living? Somehow, from offering an assassination bounty, they ended up discussing the meaning of life. You fight to achieve your goals. You may never be able to eradicate the darkness, but that doesn't mean you cannot live in the light. You may never be able to protect every single being in the universe, but you could always devote yourself to protecting the ones you love and care about. You may never achieve peace in the universe at large, but you could make peace in your house, in your city, in your country, in your homeworld. Naruto said, life in itself has no meaning. You give your own life meaning when you find something and devote yourself to it. And that could be anything. It could be your family, it could be your job, or it could even be a hobby or a passion like music or fishing. Not long after that, their conversation ended and Naruto went back to watching the sky, also thinking about the words that he had told Orion. A sudden voice came from his shoulder, startling him. Not knowing when, Kyuubi had returned at his side. So you found a new purpose in life. Previously, Naruto's reason to live, his goal, had been to find a way back to the elemental nations. He had devoted nearly a century of his life to it, completing over 3,000 bounties and traveling through the universe unceasingly for it. It had been more than just a goal, it had been an obsession. But, when Kyuubi gave him a wake-up call and he finally realized the futility of it all, he had been broken. He had been lost. Let me guess, it has to do with a certain warrior princess, doesn't it? Kyuubi pressed on and chuckled. Naruto flicked his snout, making the fox let out a yelp. So what if it does? He grumbled. Yeah, you're gonna say it's too early, but that's how I feel now. I can't help it, okay. I like her a lot and I'm happy. What's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong per se, but the higher the expectations, the bigger the disappointment if things fall down. So I'll say it again, it's too early. Silence instilled between the two of them for a while. Eventually, Kyuubi said, Oi, how about you wipe that disgusting smile off your face and do some work? Naruto threw the fox off his shoulder in annoyance. What's wrong with my smile? He retorted. What's so disgusting about it? The fox snorted. HNG. That love-struck face you're making is gross. I threw up a little in my mouth. Naruto stood up and started rubbing his fists. Looks like you got a lot of courage after getting a win over me on Earth while I was weakened. Come, Kurama-sama, let's have another go at it now that I've fully recovered. Kyuubi revealed a scared face and he jumped from his place as if he had springs in his legs. You won't get away. Naruto hollered after him and threw himself into his pursuit. Man and fox started shinobi jumping at breakneck speeds through the virgin jungle, greatly startling the creatures in their way. Using his 4 limbs and his 9 tails, Kyuubi was unsurprisingly extremely agile while in the trees, even more than Naruto. You talk the talk but you can't walk the walk, eh? Ha ha. Kyuubi yelled at his back and laughed, confident that Naruto was not going to catch up to him anytime soon. But the fox's laughter died in its throat when a particular dagger with an inscription written on its handle whirred by his ear, nearly nicking him. Kyuubi did not get scared by the dagger almost stabbing him, but he got scared about what he knew it was going to come next, and true to his predictions, a dark blonde-haired man appeared with his hand on the handle of the dagger, in midair, in a yellow flash of light. Cheetah was the only thing Kyuubi had the time to yell before Naruto kicked him down from the tree like a football. Asterism. You're in an awfully good mood today, Naruto remarked. It's been quite some time since we went on a proper job, hasn't it? More than half a year. I kinda missed it, Kyuubi replied, his tails wagging happily behind him. I wonder who are we going to kill now? At his words, Naruto was surprised to realize that, indeed, they had not taken jobs like they used to ever since they rescued Superman from the Preserver's ship. He had been depressed for months after realizing that it was impossible to find a way back home. He had not taken any bounties in the meantime, just staying on his lush planet, Myoboku, doing nothing but fishing and lazying around all day long. Then, when they finally accepted a bounty, it turned out to be bogus, a trap from the Scions and Ruinak. It was only now that they were finally going again on a proper job. Naruto bonked him on the head and chuckled. We're not going to kill anyone this time. It's an espionage mission, you brute. After typing a few commands to the AI of the ship to adjust their course, Naruto said. Man, I miss our old ship. After Kyuubi destroyed the previous ship while trying to get rid of the yellow power ring that had attempted to kidnap him, Naruto bought a new spaceship from the black market. Why? This one is capable of space warping too and it's pretty much the same size as the other one, the fox said. Naruto shook his head. It's a bit slower and it doesn't have cloaking ability, so we can't go incognito anymore. This mission would have been so much easier if we could go invisible like before. They were currently in the Milky Way galaxy, Cygnus system. The objective of their new mission was to infiltrate the habitable planets in that planetary system and gather intelligence. I say, screw the infiltrate thing and just smash your way through. Who's gonna stop us? Kyuubi said arrogantly. Naruto chuckled at his words. That's what our employer wants, secrecy, that's what we have to do, he said to placate the fox. Besides, not all things can be solved with force. Not all the time. The fox sniffed but did not retort. But who would have thought the Green Lantern Corps would send us a job offer? That Green Lantern from Earth said that they named you and I universal level threats. You'd think they'd want nothing to do with the likes of us. Naruto said in wonder. A few days ago, Diana called him on his lightwave device and told him that Jon Stewart had something very important to discuss with him. It turned out to be a job offer from the Guardians of the Universe. The two members of the Green Lantern Corps assigned to watch over the universe sector that included the Cygnus system of the Milky Way galaxy were suddenly killed a few weeks before. 2 new Green Lanterns were assigned to that sector, but they were killed shortly after that too. In total, 4 Green Lanterns died, without the Guardians even knowing the reason for the deaths. Before doing something drastic like invading the sector with a punitive force, the Guardians decided to take on a more subtle approach and use other means of obtaining some information first. The mercenary caterpillar was, not surprisingly, their first choice. That way, not only would they protect their core from further damage, but they would also create the opportunity to start a relationship with the powerful mercenary. 2 birds, 1 stone. Through the cockpit's window, a dark purplish marble could be seen in the distance. It was one of the very few habitable planets in the Cygnus system, Debstum. Through the cockpit's window, a dark purplish marble could be seen in the distance. It was one of the very few habitable planets in the Cygnus system, Debstum. Another short space warp later, they got close enough to the planet that they were about to enter the exosphere. The robotic voice of their ship's AI sounded. Operator, you have received a new transmission. Should I play it? At Naruto's confirmation, a yellow-skinned man wearing a military uniform appeared on the screen of the computer on board. This planet is a restricted area. Aliens are not welcome. Return at once or we'll open fire. Right after that, the transmission ended. It was a very blunt and short message. But only moments later, the radar detected 5 warships. See, that's why our previous ship was better. Scenes like this wouldn't have happened if our ship could become invisible. The fox closed his eyes and seemingly fell asleep, ignoring him. Naruto blew out a sigh and sat up from the pilot's seat. I guess we'll just have to do it the hard way. I see you're no mood for this. Well, just stay here and protect the ship then. I'll head down alone. QB was not exactly the biggest fan of missions that involved subtlety. He would much rather stay in the ship and have a nap than sneak around without doing anything, with no action. He was kind of hoping Naruto would run into some kind of trouble for him to have an excuse to let loose. Nevertheless, he did not take any actions to ruin his bounty on purpose. Taking control of the ship, the fox drove it away from the planet to avoid an altercation with the small fleet of patrol ships. As for Naruto, his white Anbu fox mask covered his face and a layer of yellow-red chakra enveloped his body, turning his previously black cloak and dark combat suit into a brightly glowing golden color. With his 9 tails chakra mode, he could survive in the vacuum of space. Then, his hands went through a short sequence of hand seals and his silhouette all of a sudden disappeared. A vague distortion in the air was the only sign left of his body. It was not perfect invisibility, but it was more than enough for him to infiltrate the planet undetected. It was a technique that his old mentor, Jiraiya, had created primarily to peep on women in bathhouses. Over the years, it had become a technique that Naruto relied on heavily when it came to missions that required secrecy. With his preparations ready, he exited the ship, into the outer space, and started flying towards the planet below. Asterism. Unsurprisingly, Naruto managed to sneak past the network of satellites surrounding the planet without being detected. He took notice though of how heavily guarded and monitored the planet was. Come to think of it, Earth was the same too. Besides the Justice League's watchtower, they had thousands of other minor satellites that one would ignore at the first glance, but they were in fact all part of a bigger network. Whoever is controlling that network of satellites is a powerful man. I haven't had the chance to talk to Diana and ask her what she knows about it. I should warn her of it in case that system of satellites doesn't belong to the Justice League. All that Naruto could see in front of his eyes was an unending mass of gray and dark purple clouds. The entire planet was covered by this blanket of clouds, he could not see anything below. When he reached the upper limit of the troposphere, 9 miles above the ground, he instinctively reached out to make a connection with the nature of the planet to see its state. A deep frown creased his forehead behind the mask. This planet is dying. He sighed in sorrow. Another planet was going to be destroyed soon. Looking at the mass of dark purple clouds enveloping the planet, he wondered. What did the inhabitants do to cause this apocalypse? Are they still alive? It did not take him long to fly past the blanket of clouds, and finally, he could see the real appearance of the planet. Coincidentally, he happened to fly above an urban settlement. Or better said, what was left of it. Going by the architecture of the buildings, the infrastructure he could see at a superficial glance, and the vehicles sprawled on the ground, he deduced that it was a fairly advanced civilization, above Earth. At least it used to be. Now, the great city was in ruins. When he got closer to the ground, he could also see more corpses than he could count. The hell happened here? Landing next to a dead body, he put his hand on it and closed his eyes as he cast a diagnosis jutsu, one of the most used techniques by the medic nins in his homeworld. To cast the technique itself was not difficult, even a genin could do it, but to interpret the results correctly was another matter. One had to possess knowledge of the human body to accurately diagnose an illness if there was one at all. That is to say, Naruto did not possess in-depth knowledge about the human body and its inner workings. He was not a medic, he had not received any education in that direction. However, even someone like him could understand what happened. Poison. Void. Some madman must have released a virus and massacred the entire city. Reminds me of that intergalactic war in the Quasar Galaxy 70 years ago. The dead inhabitants of the city did not look like they were warmongering type, they looked like tall but thin humanoids with yellow skin and red eyes, but Naruto had learned a long time ago to not judge a book by its cover. Putting his hands in a cross-shaped seal, 100 shadow clones appeared next to him in a rather large plume of smoke. Spread across the planet and investigate. If you find something worth reporting, you can start dispelling 1 hour from now. Otherwise, keep investigating. Scatter. With a yelled, "Yes boss," and a body flicker movement, the 100 clones vanished at the same time. As for the original body, he took flight and left the city, going towards a random direction too. He flew for almost 1,000 miles and he encountered more than 50 cities, big and small, in his path. But they were all in the same condition as the first city that he had stumbled upon. They were in ruins, with the entire population dead. Was everyone the planet murdered with a biological weapon? Someone must have created this pandemic. Still, he could not be sure of it until he received the intel from the shadow clones that he had sent across the planet. Furthermore, he had to find the remains of the Green Lanterns as well, or at least find what had caused the deaths. Although he could make hundreds of shadow clones, it was not exactly an easy task to finish this mission in a short time. It was similar to looking for a needle in a haystack. After flying for a few hours, Naruto and his shadow clones had covered the bigger part of 3 out of the 5 continents of the planet. Not the wilderness or the villages, small towns, but the large urban agglomerations. Now, he was at the outskirts of a small forest, sitting with his back leaning against the trunk of a tree. He was resting. Taking out his lightwave communication device, he decided to take advantage of the resting period and call his girlfriend. "Hello," a sleepy voice answered. "My bad, I called you at the wrong time," Naruto said quickly and was about to terminate the call. "NNG, don't worry. It's not night yet. I just fell asleep too early today. It's just 7 o'clock in the evening," Diana said and rubbed at her tired eyes. Taking a second look at her, Naruto realized that she was not in her sleeping clothes but still in her white and gold armor. "Rough day?" he asked. "You don't know half of it," she said. "Did a natural disaster happen or something like that? I thought with the Justice League having almost 100 members by now it would become easier for you to handle any situation that might arise." No. At a first glance, things are great. Much better than ever actually. But something is worrying me about the general population. She hesitated a bit, taken a page out of your book and started spending some time on the internet as well. Seeing a smirk appearing on his face, she added quickly. "Don't grin at me like that, I didn't do it for nasty reasons like you." Naruto laughed at her reaction. "No, I'm serious. I wanted to get more in touch with normal people and see what they think and how they look at things. To understand them better. On the internet, under the protection of anonymity, people are much more sincere than in reality. I've noticed a trend over the past 2 months. Something, or someone, is inciting the general opinion against the metahumans. I can't say I'm surprised, to be honest." Naruto replied. Imagine you're a weak and helpless person, just trying to go to work and provide for your family, for your kids, and then one day your entire workplace disappears because Superman fought against someone and demolished 3 buildings in the process. Or imagine you made a loan to buy yourself an expensive car and paid for it with your sweat and blood, and, the next day, some crazy metahuman blows it up in a fit of anger. How would you feel? To see the result of years of work and effort disappear in the blink of an eye, just like that. Wonder Woman was momentarily silent. I understand your point. I saw many other people saying similar things on the forums. But look at the alternative. If we didn't stand up to stop the criminals, who would do it? What would happen? What's more important, some material possessions or people's lives? She took off the golden wing ornaments framing the sides of her face and buried her face in her palms tiredly. There's no real solution to this situation. As long as conflict exists, material damages are inevitable. It feels like every day, people appreciate less and less what we do to keep them safe. No matter what we do, it's never good enough. Others say that we should just kill the criminals and put them down like rabid dogs, for good, while. Are you opposed to that? Naruto suddenly asked. Diana shook her head slowly. No. I understand that some people can't be redeemed. But nobody will ever be willing to cross that line among the Justice League. In the first place, who gives us the right to decide who gets to live and who gets to die? Once we do something like this, the government and the United Nations will finally have a pretext to openly move against us. Once that happened, it could even escalate into a civil war if worse came to worst. Civil war. Naruto scoffed. What could they do against the Justice League? You're so much more powerful than them that you can't call that a war. It would be a one-sided beatdown. I don't know about that. Batman discovered signs of a secret organization affiliated with the government of the USA recruiting metahumans for a suicide squad, presumably preparing to move against us if the opportunity appeared. As I said, things are becoming more hectic and complicated with every passing day. And this anti-metahuman movement gets new supporters at an alarming pace. Superman and I are having it the worst. Many people blame him for what he did a few years ago while being mind-controlled by Darkseid. As for me, 1. Did you do something too? Not long after I left Themyscira, one of my Amazon sisters, Aracia, started an epidemic. She used a virus that only affected men, trying to annihilate the male population. While we managed to defeat her quickly, before the epidemic could become a pandemic, there were still many men that died, especially among the elderly. People are afraid that I'm a lunatic bound to snap one day as she did. 2. Sorry for complaining like that. I just have no one else I could talk to about these things. And I work so hard. 15 to 20 hours a day, every day, fighting crime, saving people from burning houses, preventing accidents, arresting terrorists and patrolling the cities. It's not just me. The entire Justice League is like that. We work so hard to keep everyone safe. And at the end of the day, we get home just to hear people throw curses at us and TV show anchors mocking our names or costumes and criticizing everything we do. She quickly wiped a tear that was about to fall from the corner of her eye. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm here for you not just when we're joking and flirting around, but when you're sad and need to talk about your problems too. Naruto said kindly. After I'm done with this job I promise I'll come to visit you, okay? It will do you good to have a break from all that hero-related stuff and just relax for a day or two. She perked up at his words and her eyes brightened. Where are you now, by the way? What's your current mission? She asked. Didn't Green Lantern tell you? You should know by now how he is. It's Green Lantern core business, therefore, it's classified. Diana said, mimicking Jon Stewart's voice. The two of them chuckled together. I'm investigating the death of 4 members of the Green Lantern Corps. They appear to have died in the Cygnus system, Milky Way galaxy. They want me to. Naruto, what is that? Behind you. Wonder Woman suddenly yelled, greatly startling him. Hurriedly, he jumped up and flipped his body in the air. It was just in time to slip past a very thick vine-like tentacle that had tried to sneakily wrap around his neck. He had been so focused on his conversation with Wonder Woman that he had completely forgotten about his surroundings. Fuck, that's gross. Naruto cursed. Gotta hang up, Diana, talk to you later. Promise, he said and tried to end the call, but a mass of vine-like tentacles soundlessly fell from the crown of the tree above, right onto the back of his head. He fell on his knees and became immobile, the lightwave communication device falling from his hands. Only Wonder Woman's horrified voice could be heard as she called out to him desperately. Naruto, wake up. Naruto. A disgusting mass of tentacles covered Naruto's face and torso completely, only leaving him some space to breathe and nothing else. A yawn came from his mouth and he tried to raise his arms and stretch, but he realized that he could not move one of them. Turning his head to see what was wrong, he realized why. A woman was sleeping with her head on his arm. He smiled as he brought a hand to her face and moved a lock of her black hair behind her ear. When he tenderly caressed her soft cheek with his thumb, her eyelids raised, revealing her baby blue eyes. Morning, he said. In response, the woman rolled on top of him and straddled his midsection. Morning, she said too and pressed her lips against his in a chaste kiss. Then, she laid on top of him, with her head on his chest, right below his chin. He brought his arms around her back and hugged her dearly. They had been together for more than a decade, but they had never gotten tired of each other. If anything, their love deepened with every passing day. Just cuddling like that in the morning brought him a feeling of fulfillment and peace. Little Thea woke up, Naruto said when his sensitive ears caught a particular sound coming from outside their bedroom. Watch. Any moment now, she'll come bursting into our bedroom like a small hurricane. The woman in his arms laughed softly and said. He too chuckled because, as on cue, their bedroom's door was abruptly opened and a young girl about 12 years old burst in full of energy. Mom. Dad. Wake up. Today is my graduation, she yelled in excitement. The little girl was a carbon copy of her mother. Long and straight black hair, fair skin and a pair of blue eyes sparkling with mischief. You little monkey, it's still too early for you to be so rowdy. Naruto lightly admonished, but the girl just grinned in reply. She suddenly took flight and plopped herself on top of her parents. Delightful laughter came from her when her mother started play fighting against her for who was allowed to monopolize Naruto. He could only smile widely at the sight of his wife and daughter. Eventually, however, little Thea rolled to the side exhausted, glaring at her victorious-looking mother. You'll see, I'll definitely defeat you one day. I'll defeat you and take Daddy all for myself. Diana pinched her daughter's nose and giggled. You're still a few centuries too young for that. Now shoo and go take a shower. I'll make breakfast for you. The young girl winced. Hey, what's with that reaction? Diana said, her face aggrieved. It's all right, I'll prepare breakfast today. Naruto offered. Yay, Thea said and pumped her fist in the air before quickly flying away from the room. Thea, no flying in the house. Diana yelled after her, but the little girl was long gone. She made a depressed face. Is my cooking really that bad? She asked after Thea left. Naruto chuckled and kissed her on the forehead. We all have things we're good at and things we can't do. It's proof that we're still human. Then, he stood up from the bed and unexpectedly swept her off her feet, taking her in his arms in a princess carry. She let out a small shriek of delight and she brought her arms around his neck. That morning, the couple needed a longer than usual time when they showered together. Asterism. I'm finally a full-fledged kunoichi. I got a great team too. I'm together with Uchiha Sarada and Sabaku Shinki. We're going to be the strongest team of Genin ever. Even stronger than you and your team. Thea proclaimed full of conviction. I'm sure you will. Naruto said and patted her on the head, ruffling her hair and making her swat his hand away in annoyance. Dad, I told you to not touch my hair. A woman's hair is her life. A young boy wearing red war paint on his face sneered from the side. A shinobi will never go far when they care that much about their appearance. Look at Sarada, she's a true kunoichi. She doesn't care about her looks. But his survival instincts kicked in and he suddenly broke into a sprint, both Thea and Sarada hot on his tail, intent on beating him up. They're as full of energy as ever, aren't they? A red-haired man in his late 30s said from the side. It was Gaara. He had been the Kazekage of Sunagakure for almost 10 years before he finally decided to retire. Upon passing the mantle to his successor, he moved to Konoha to be closer to Naruto and to his sister, Temari, who had married and moved away to Konoha many years before. Only Kankuro remained behind, acting as the new Kazekage's right-hand man. Naruto and Gaara clasped their hands in a strong handshake. Are you free today? Diana asked. We decided to have a little party together with Sakura and Sasuke. You're more than welcome to join us. Gaara looked pleasantly surprised. Definitely. Initially it was supposed to be a small party, but somehow my mother found out about it. Now, besides us, the parents of the 3 Genins, there are many more. There's also Mom, Dad, Sandaime, Tsunade Barchan and Ero Senin too. My mother-in-law will certainly not miss on the opportunity either. Also, Kurama will be there too, of course. Naruto said apologetically, but Gaara only smiled. Naruto was his first friend, the person that had saved him from his darkness. Not just that, he even came after him to save his life when he got captured by the Akatsuki. Gaara cared about him just as much as he cared about his 2 siblings and his adopted son, Shinki. Asterism. It was late in the evening. The moon was already shining brightly in the sky, but that did not diminish the excitement and joy of the party taking place in the courtyard of the manor owned by the former 4th Hokage and his wife. Jiraiya-sensei still hasn't given up on wooing Tsunade-sama even after all these years, a 50-something-years-old Namikaze Minato said and chuckled as he watched the toad sage making doe eyes at a cold-looking slug princess. At his side, a 90-year-old Sarutobi Hiruzen poured himself a cup of sake and let out a warm smile. Youth comes from the heart. Jiraiya will always be a young man in that regard. I have to say, though, Minato, I'm quite surprised by your son. I never thought he would turn down the position of Hokage. Minato shrugged his shoulders helplessly. I know, right. As he grew up he drove everyone crazy with his, "I'm going to be the Hokage one day," lines. Naruto suddenly came from behind them and wrapped his arms around their shoulders. You 2 old men wouldn't happen to be gossiping about me like a pair of old women, right? The 3 of them shared a laugh together. Naruto also poured himself some sake and drank it all in a gulp. After I grew up, I realized that being the Hokage is far less exciting than I thought at first. You spend 99% of your time buried under paperwork. I chose to focus more on my family rather than on a boring career. See, your son is smarter than you, Minato, a red-haired woman in her 50s said half seriously, half jokingly from the side. Despite her age, her hair was still very long and crimson-red and, although time had left some marks on her face, it could be seen that she had been a very beautiful woman in the past. She was Naruto's mother, Kushina Uzumaki. You're absolutely right, Kushina. Minato said meekly, making both Naruto and Sarutobi laugh out loud. The leadership of the village is in good hands. Kakashi-sensei is a dependable man. He's a much better fit as a Hokage than I am. Naruto said. Besides, there are no more wars among the 5 great nations. Ever since we sealed Kaguya, we've been living in an era of peace. His heart was filled with content and with happiness whenever he looked at his wife and daughter. Furthermore, he could live his days in peace together with his parents, his grandfather figure, Sarutobi Hiruzen, his auntie Tsunade, his perverted mentor, Jiraiya, and his best friends, Gaara and Sasuke. Diana was happier too, no longer stressed and tormented by responsibilities, and she could live together with her mother too, away from the oppression of the Olympian gods. What more could he ask from life? This is paradise, he thought as he watched everyone around him having a good time. Sasuke and Gaara were playing a game of shogi, Jiraiya was trying to flirt with Tsunade, Sakura and Diana were chatting together with Hippolyta, and the 3 genin were having a mock fight against a bear-sized 9-tailed fox, while Naruto, his parents, and Sandaime were having a drink. But at that moment, he suddenly winced in pain as a strong migraine assaulted his brain. He dropped his cup of sake, spilling it all over his clothes. Naru-chan, are you okay? Kushina asked, suddenly worried. Naruto did not reply. In his mind, a rush of memories invaded his thoughts. It was exactly what happened when his shadow clones dispelled and he received their memories. But he could not remember ever making a shadow clone that day, let alone so many shadow clones that they would cause him a migraine by dispelling all at once. In his mind, he could now see a dying planet with a race of yellow-skinned humanoids, all dead. Ruined cities, a destroyed nature, and a sky covered by a thick curtain of dark purple clouds. Nothing to worry about, Naruto replied eventually. I'll go to the bathroom to get myself cleaned up. He almost ran to the bathroom and splashed with cold water over his face. But when he looked in the mirror, he was startled. His hands involuntarily rose to touch his own face, tracing his whisker-like marks with his fingers. This isn't right. What is going on? The image he could see in the mirror was different from what he remembered. His reflection had bright golden hair, blue eyes and very thin whisker-like birthmarks. I used to look like that. But that was before I unsealed Kurama from my body. He remembered that after unsealing Kyuubi, The part of the Bayu that been left inside of his body had fused with him, which resulted in his eyes become red and slit, like that of a fox. His golden hair darkened to the point where it became a strawberry blonde, and the marks on his face had become much thicker and darker. At that moment, he suddenly heard a chorus of cries coming from the courtyard. He got outside the house just in time to see the bright moon in the sky suddenly crack and shatter. No, this can't be happening, he shouted, his face livid. A massive rip in the space appeared above the courtyard. A pale white woman with horns on her head and long white hair stepped out of the rift. Her pupilless white eyes stared at the people below with hatred. She raised her hands and said, "All killing ash bones." Time seemed to slow down to a crawl, but despite his heightened senses and superhuman powers, Naruto found himself unable to react. Under his horrified eyes, he watched how bone spikes shot from the rabbit goddess arms, impaling everyone below. To this day, it was still the deadliest technique that Naruto had ever witnessed in his long life. The moment that the bone spikes touched someone, their body crumbled into ash. They did not have time to even scream. He could only watch in terror how his daughter perished, turned into ash and scattered in the wind by the first wave of attacks. His body immediately burst with a brilliance of golden light, and 10 truth-seeking orbs appeared at his back. Enraged, he lunged at Kaguya, screaming like possessed, but a rift appeared in the space, right in front of him, and teleported him to several miles away. He teleported back right away, but he fell on his knees in despair at the sight that greeted his eyes. All that remained of his loved ones were just a few mounds of ash. His wife, his daughter, his parents, his best friends, his sensei, his auntie, everyone was dead. The moment that the rush of memories from his shadow clones had invaded his brain, Naruto realized that what he was experiencing at that moment was only an illusion. His parents had died a very long time ago, the day he was born. Sandaime Hokage was assassinated by Orochimaru when he was a genin, and his sensei, Jiraiya, was killed by Pain when he was 16. There was no way for them to be alive then. However, even despite knowing that in the depths of his heart, the pain he felt at that moment was not an illusion. Watching everyone he had ever loved die once more messed him up. In particular, his daughter's death hit him so hard that he felt physically ill. Asterism. A powerful hand suddenly clenched on a mass of vine-like tentacles. Something like a shriek of pain came from the plant when it was abruptly yanked from the host that it had preyed upon. Its tentacles struggled to wrap around the arm that had grabbed it, trying to get back and possess his body, but with a squeeze of his fingers, the tentacle plant was squashed into a paste of green blood. Naruto was still on his knees, his body shivering all over. His face was livid and his eyes were haunted. Everything had been just an illusion. But what he had felt in that illusion had been real. His love for Diana and his daughter, Thea, his feelings for his parents, and the despair at watching everyone else die, they were like a molten hot rod piercing through his heart. As he stood on all fours, on his knees, the nails on his fingers started to grow and turned into claws, digging into the soil beneath. His strawberry blonde hair turned blood red, and a haze of red and yellow chakra started seeping out of his body. But he reined his chakra back in. He was silent. There were no explosions of chakra, no crazy displays of power. But under his cold fury, all living beings in the vicinity became mute. Even the wind came to a standstill. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.